To
No worries, man.
everyone who is joining us for the first time, I would quickly like to introduce the session. So, this is another session for Recipe for Success series. And in this series, we aim to inspire students to channel their passion for culinary arts while examining the profound role that food plays in shaping global perception and strengthening what we call India's soft power. And today we have Justin Narayan sir joining us. And again, sir, thank you so much for doing this. I would quickly like to introduce you, not that you require an introduction, but I've written one for you, sir. So
Perfect.
food, so food has an uncanny ability to transcend borders, telling stories of heritage, innovation, and personal journeys. Today, we have the pleasure of delving into the culinary arts of Justin Narayan, the winner of MasterChef Australia 2021, with his Fijian-Indian roots and Australian upbringing. Justin has masterfully blended cultures on the plate, culminating in his upcoming cookbook, Everything is Indian. Let's embark on this flavorful journey and uncover the ingredients to his success with this Recipe for Success series. Okay,
Amazing.
again, sir, thank
Stunning
you for
intro. Thank
thank
you.
you so
Thank you
much
so
for joining.
much.
Thank you so much for doing this, sir. And when we do this series, we send an email to schools and then they send us questions. And when they got to know that you are joining, we had tons of questions flooding in, and then our team had to shortlist some questions. But, sir, to start with, I would like to ask you something about your journey.
Yeah.
Your culinary journey is deeply influenced by your Fijian Indian heritage and multicultural Australian upbringing. How have these diverse backgrounds shaped your approach to cooking? And did you always envision a career in the culinary arts?
It's a good question. And I think honestly, for me, food has always been about bringing people together through my Fijian Indian heritage, growing up in Australia. Food was always this way to really, it was a medium to connect with people, connect with, your family, connect with friends, but connect with strangers, connect with people from different cultures. It's just an easy way to us as humans to understand each other. You know what I mean? You put a plate of delicious food in front of someone, regardless of whether you know their culture or not, you put it in your mouth, your body reacts in a certain way, and you're like, this is amazing. And you have this common ground all of a sudden. And that always fascinated me about food. And so I just kind of followed that passion, and one thing led to the next. And in 2021, I applied for MasterChef and got in, and the rest was kind of history from there. So I never really envisioned a career in hospitality or culinary arts. It was something I kind of stumbled into, but I've always had it be such a big part of my life. So yeah.
Wonderful, sir. That is amazing and very inspiring. And sir, I have read about you, and I read that you started cooking when you were 13.
Yeah.
So I must ask this question, and it's slightly out of syllabus, but I'm sure that you will be able to answer this. Sir, when it's very difficult for young people to be taken seriously in the society because how young people in the society are, when we try to say something, people don't take us very seriously because this society is yet very obsessed with the fact that until the time you turn gray, you haven't done something that is of decent pedigree. So,
Yeah.
sir, how can we make our point clear and and tell people that this is what we want to do, and we are very sure about this, and we are right?
Yeah, well, I don't know. I feel like you have to just watch the IPL, from a couple of days ago, seeing, young men just do something crazy. So I feel like there's so much great inspiration around us from young people doing incredible things, youth. But I think it's also there's a yin and yang to how we kind of balance that. I think there's a certain confidence and determination that we have to have, but also a humility that we also have to balance, of respecting tradition, older generations, and and until we kind of earn the right to make those changes and push our agendas, I think that comes with time, that comes with experience. But I think you can start that at a very young age. So yeah.
Very rightly, sir, said we all will take notes and make sure that we implement this in our lives. But sir, talking about your milestones, winning MasterChef 2021 was one of the significant milestones in your career. So how did that experience influence your culinary approach, and what key lessons did you take away from the competition?
Yeah, when you enter the competition, you're just a ordinary like home cook, so you kind of don't have a way to talk about food. You don't have really the techniques. You're kind of learning it as you go. Everyone is watching this happen on, the world stage. So it's a vulnerable experience. But for me, you kind of really learn what type of food you want to create and share with people. You kind of dig deep within yourself about how you want to define yourself as a cook and a chef. And there's all these kind of questions that you don't really contemplate much, when you're cooking for your friends at home. You're just doing it to, entertain friends and family, and you love the connection of food. But I think when you look into the culinary arts and hospitality, food is something, there's an art form to it. It communicates something, it tells stories. And so, yeah, it really got me thinking about food in a completely different way. And you do a lot of soul searching within yourself. You question everything, your confidence, if you're good enough. And so for me, it kind of reaffirmed a lot of things within myself to just keep, back yourself, be confident, have good people around you. You're going to fail, keep going. And it definitely, is just the beginning most of the time. So life's long. So a lot of lessons learned.
Okay. And so since you talked about home cooks before the competition, you were just a home cook who has came the competition. In Everything is Indian, you present over 90 recipes that modernize traditional Indian flavors for contemporary home cooks. So what inspired you to create this collection, and how do you balance authenticity with innovation in your own recipes?
Yeah, the book Everything is Indian is kind of just an inspiration from my family's kitchen. It was the food I grew up around. And for me, I grew up in an Indian household, and that was the kind of the lens I had of interpreting food from other cultures. So even when people were cooking pastas or stir fries, I was always trying to use like the Indian lens as a reference point of like, oh, they're using ginger and garlic, and we use ginger and garlic in our curries, or see cumin lamb noodles in a Chinese dish. You're like, oh yeah, we do cumin and lamb, and so it was just this way to relate to people, relate to other cuisines, and as you learnt about food. And Australia was so fortunate here in Australia. It's just this big melting pot of so many different cultures, so many different cuisines. And so for me, the dining recipes are just a accumulation of all of those experiences, and how I grew up, where I grew up. Some of the recipes, most of the recipes in there aren't, in fact, traditional Indian dishes, but they're inspired by um, Indian culture and Indian hospitality. And so the food may not be, Indian technically, but the heart and the intention of it is. And that's kind of what the book speaks to.
Absolutely, sir. And at I.I.M.U.N also, we emphasize the importance of blending global perspectives with local traditions. So, following up to that, how do you see Indian cuisine evolving on the international stage while staying true to its roots?
Yeah, interesting question. Because my view of Indian food is its roots are that it was always evolving. Like if you look at the world now, like I had four generations born and raised in Fiji, before that South India, but they came from South India, the cuisine evolved coming from Fiji, but then you go to the Caribbean, you go to Malaysia, you go to Japan. Like Indian food, like kind of spread across the globe, has always been evolving. And so it, I think, has this ability to do it innately. I don't think there is this. I think there is like a traditional part of it, but the tradition is that. Um, Wherever it would go, it would continue to adapt and grow and use the cuisines around it. Use the produce that was in the countries that Indians migrated to or were taken to, and we made delicious food and delicious cuisines and fusions and yeah, so for me, Indian food has always been evolving on a global scale, and I think that's what we are continuing to do. And you continue to see that. You go to like London, and Indian food is London in London is not traditional at all, but it is what people in London know Indian food to be. You go to Fiji, and people in Fiji that's what they know Indian food to be. It might not be if you came from India to those countries, you'd be like, oh, this isn't our food. But um, for the people who are experiencing it, it is to them. So yeah, I think we just continue to do what we do, continue to share the food and let that do the talking.
Wonderfully answered, sir. Just share a food and make people smile. But sir, many people think that cooking Indian food at home is complex and time consuming. But through your cookbook, how do you aim to change this perception and make Indian cuisine more accessible to home cooks?
Yeah, like the tradition of Indian food is like usually like oh, w women would stay back home or a man would stay back home, and you would have a day set aside or half a day set aside just to cook. Um, but the world's kind of evolved, like men and women, families, we're all working, and no, we're all time poor, and you want to be able to cook a dish in 20, 30 minutes, not 2 or 3 hours. We just don't have that time anymore. So for me, it was taking some of the inspiration from the flavors that Indian food presents, and just adding modern techniques to it, so people can cook it. It is accessible to them every day. So there's, a roast chicken curry that, is minimal effort. You can marinate it, takes 5 minutes to marinate. You put it in the oven, you clean the house, look after the kids and then you don't have to stand over a stove and stir it constantly. So for me, it was all about trying to make those same flavors, the same memories, the same uh, things that I grew up with accessible for um, us in the modern world because it's changed so much. And so that's really what I've aimed to do. And so it's just taking, a little bit of tweaks on some of the techniques, but the flavors are all, I think, something we would all recognize if you grew up in an Indian household.
Old flavors, old taste, but modern style. Very
Yeah,
well
yeah.
said. But sir, when it comes to cooking, sustainability is a pressing concern in today's culinary world. So, how do you incorporate sustainable practices into your cooking, and what role do you believe that chefs plays in promoting environmental sustainability?
Yeah, again, I think it's like looking back in the past and looking at some of the tradition. Like sustainability was something that was born out of necessity. Like it was taking things because there was such a lack of produce and things you could eat. So you would have to cook things that maybe weren't edible. If you cook them for a long period of time, they would become edible and delicious. Or you would have to, treat them a certain way for it to become, use it. Like this whole, nose to tail cooking is like this cool thing in the restaurant culinary world. But at one point in time, it was the only way to cook because there was one, you know, chicken in the village, and everyone needed you had to maximize the amount of flavor that you could get from it. And so there is. there is taking inspiration from some of those older recipes, taking inspiration from some of those older techniques. And so I think chefs have a huge part to play in making sustainability more accessible for people, exposing new techniques or exposing old techniques, showing new ingredients, showing people different ways to cook, things that might get wasted or thrown out, and just maximizing everything. Not because, because, yeah, we don't want to waste everything, but also because it's tasty and you don't want to waste. So, yeah, I think there's a big part to play there.
Absolutely, sir. And talking about the new techniques and new experiments, the cookbook features unique dishes like masala-infused roast potatoes and chai cream brulee. So, sir, how do you conceptualize such inventive combinations? And what advice is there any advice that you want to give these aspiring chefs and to look and to uh, experiment with traditional flavors and use this modern style?
Yeah, like a lot of those recipes was born out of curiosity and a lot of failing, a lot of trial and error. So if there's any kind of inspiration or any kind of advice I'd give is just stay curious. You know, and it probably won't be good the first time or the second time, but if you keep, pounding the rock with the idea, you can maybe lead to somewhere that's really cool and unique. But also taking inspiration from the world around us. So like you'd see, these incredible French techniques and this incredible finesse. And I wonder if Indian flavors uh, could translate in something like that. And it kind of was just a question I had. And, you do a bit of trial and error, and you come along and you come up with some unique dishes. And there's a certain nostalgia to it. There's a certain playfulness to it. And I think that's always good for chefs to have. And just stay curious, stay playful, and be okay with failing.
And sir, would you like to share an instance from your life when you try to make a new recipe, but then you didn't get the hold of it uh, and learned a lesson from that?
Oh, well, just because we mentioned the tray creme brulee,
Hmm.
I think I did 7 iterations of that recipe before I came up with a version that worked because the tea, I think it changes the acidity and like of the milk, and so it tends to curdle a lot quicker. So there was a lot of trial and error there. So many things. I'm trying to think of them, but even with a lot of trial and error, even finding some of the traditional dishes, because there's no recipes. My party and mum never had recipes for things written down. So for me to be able to replicate their dishes and create a recipe or a formula that, anyone could be able to cook was quite difficult because every time they would cook something, it would be intuitive, it would be different. So trying to come up with a method that anyone can do, trying to come up with a method that gives you a consistent result is something that was something that was quite difficult to do. A lot of trial and error. I'd be like, okay, I know, there's a lot of things that my grandparents do and Indian cooks do intuitively. That aren't quite communicated, so it was quite difficult to formulate it in a recipe.
That is very, very inspiring. We all should try, we all should not fail, we all should not give up. But, sir, transition from a home cook to a public figure with always comes with setbacks, always comes with set of challenges. What has been the most unexpected aspect of this journey, and how have you navigated the pressure that comes with it?
Yeah, yeah, I think for me there's this big like imposter syndrome thing you had to overcome in your head because your life kind of changes overnight and you're kind of like, am I good enough to do this? Do I deserve this? And there's all these questions that you ask yourself along the way. And you just take it one day at a time. You surround yourself with good people that are going to bring you up, not down. And you just keep making progress, keep making little steps forward, and eventually you start to gain the evidence that kind of establishes that, hey, you do deserve this. This is something that you are great at, and it's a process that happens over time. But yeah, for me, um, yeah, it was a big change, but it I was very fortunate because I had some really good family, good support, an incredible wife around me that kind of kept me grounded, kept the main thing, and I didn't get caught up in, the smoke and mirrors and the you know the inertia of everything uh, that went with it. So yeah, I feel like I was very fortunate.
Amazing answer, sir. And at Iman, we also believe that just trust the process and everything will be all right. Everything will go very smoothly. But sir, at IIMUN, we aim to bridge academics and industry by connecting aspiring professionals with established leaders like yourself. As someone who has successfully transitioned into a culinary industry, what advice would you offer to these students and aspiring chefs who are passionate about pursuing a career in food?
I would again just say stay curious, stay humble, and just start. I think sometimes you kind of, should I do this? Should I not do this? The only way you're going to find out is if you give it a go. So I would say just go for it, get some experience, jump into a kitchen, start cooking more, start sharing food with people, and go for it from there. And Keller has like an incredible quote where he talks about um, uh, the point of cooking food for people isn't to strive for perfection. There's no such thing as perfection. The whole point of that pursuit is to be able to present something to people that would make them happy. And I think at the end of the day, I think sometimes we're getting caught up in like incredible techniques and plating and just this perfecting our ideas. But end of the day, it's food and it's about making people happy, nourishing the soul. And so get started and go for it.
Absolutely. At the end of the day, it's making people smile, spreading love, and not to perfect something and not to take it as a goal per se, but to do it with all your passion.
Yeah.
And so coming back to the Indian food and the cuisine, so the Indian food market is experiencing significant growth, and with the projection estimating the value to reach between 144 and 152 billion dollars by 2030. So this reflects a growing global appetite of Indian food. So how do you see this influencing the evolution of Indian cooking, especially in fusion and modern interpretations?
Yeah, I think Indian food will kind of continue to do what it's always done. Like you've seen it spread across the globe. Um, and I think it is inevitable that it will have its time in the sun. And I think there's some incredible Indian chefs and stories that are being told about Indian food, where people are understanding the technique, the level of technique, the complexity that goes into it. And there's some just incredible chefs that are doing things like London, New York, Mumbai, and so it's really cool to see Indian food be elevated in that way, but also see some of the techniques and some of the flavors of Indian food meet with other cultures and see where that leads. And so I think it's just getting started, and people will continue to innovate and present something that's really cool. So I'm very excited for it.
Right. And sir, we as an organization, we do conferences across the globe, and we do conferences in places where there is no Indianness as such present, like Japan and Uruguay. Back when we did a conference in Uruguay, there was no Indianness present, and there were close to zero Indian restaurants present. So when we did a conference, after we did a conference in Uruguay, the Indian embassy in Uruguay got established, and there were a lot of restaurants, Indian restaurants, were established after we did a conference. And this is what the organization aims to spread the Indianness across the globe. Uh,
That's amazing.
yes, sir. Sir, I have bored you enough. There's a very fun round that I like called as rapid fire round. And
Okay,
this round is whatever I say, you whatever comes in your mind, you answer that. So, sir, what comes
ready.
in your mind when I say a spice you can't cook without?
Human. Jira, cumin.
Okay. MasterChef Australia.
Life changing.
Okay. One kitchen gadget you swear by.
I would say kitchen scale.
Everything is Indian.
Great book.
Okay. Your go-to comfort food.
It would be curry, dal, chicken curry, dal, rice.
Okay. A dish that best represents your cooking style.
Would be the chicken curry tacos.
Okay. Amazing. And India.
India is influential,
Uh, sir, youth.
limitless.
Yes. And so my favorite, the organization IIMUN. What comes in your mind when I say IIMUN?
I would say change.
Thank you so much, sir. Uh, uh, Again, thank you so much for doing this. Uh, food has a power to connect cultures, spark creativity, and redefine traditions. Sir's journey has shows how passion, perseverance, and a love for Indian cuisine can create a lasting impact. Thank you, sir, for sharing your insights and experience.